In the previous lesson on morality, we made it very clear that living a virtuous life and actually exercising the cardinal virtues is an active choice. It is a choice that you make in your intellect, in which you choose to serve God and to serve good. And at the moment you start moving from the virtuous, from the cardinal virtues, and you start flirting with the opposite side, and you enter on the level of your relationship with other people, you enter into the evil side, you have made a conscious choice not to serve God, but to serve evil. Let's go and look at Macbeth, and let us ask ourselves about the choices that he made. Firstly, Macbeth understands the virtue of temperance. How do we know that? We know that from the text, and I've told you before that you must always find some quotes to substantiate any statement that you make about a character. So I'm saying here that Macbeth understands the virtue of temperance. How do I know that? When Lady Macbeth urges him to kill the king, and she says, if you don't kill the king, you are not a man. She emasculates him, right? And then he says to her, prithee peace, be quiet. I dare do all that may become a man. Who dares do more is none. So what is he saying? He says, look at me. I'm a man. Don't you tell me I'm not a man. I dared. I had the courage to serve my God in the war. I fought very bravely in the war for king and God and country. I killed many people. And that made me a man. I am a man. But if I dare to do more, I am nothing. In other words, I'm not a man anymore. I am a beast. In other words, I'm in the service of evil. Now, what does he mean by that? What he means is that if I have killed a lot, I know, but that was for the good of the country and for God and for the king. But if I go and kill for selfish reasons, right? I am not a man anymore. I am a beast. So he knows what temperance is all about. And remember, it is exactly temperance which he is going to reject in the favor of excess, right? Furthermore, what he knows is that in this life, there is even-handed justice that will teach bloody instructions, which, being taught, return to plague the inventor. So what he's saying is that even on earth, I know that if I do the wrong thing, in other words, I teach bloody instructions, in other words, I kill people, I am actually just teaching other people to kill me or to try and kill me. Because that's even-handed justice on earth. I kill someone, somebody's going to want to kill me back, right? In return. So that's even-handed justice. And even if I prepare a poison chalice, it might just so happen that even-handed justice will make that poison chalice end up in my hand, and I will drink it and I will die instead of the person that it's intended for. So he knows this. You get it from the text. He knows that nature and the forces of good will blow the horrid deed in every eye. In other words, there are forces of evil, but there are also forces of good. And if I do this atrocious deed, which goes against nature, against order, against all that is good, the heavens, on the winds, heavenly figures will ride, and they'll talk about it, they'll tell everybody about the terrible thing I did, because the forces of good will blow the horror deed in every eye. And yet, what he does is he chooses, and that is also something that he says. He says it in so many words. It's a very arrogant choice that he makes, because he says, I risk the life to come. He says, fine, I'll take my chances. I know there's even an injustice and it might get back to me, yeah. And I will even risk the life to come, my eternal life, my hope in God. I'll even risk that. So big is my ambition. So I wish to serve myself in this instance. So he's willing to risk his hope in God, and he consciously chooses. There is no way in which we can say that his choice was not conscious. And to show you even a better idea, a better example of how he knew what he was doing, he says how good the king is and how he cannot kill the king, and he's dithering, he's going this way and that way and thinking, should I, shouldn't I? And then he resolves, he says about himself the following quote, which is a very, very important quote in the play. And it's an image. Remember the endowed language? I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which o'erleaps itself and falls on the other. Now, if you analyze that image, you must see that it's an image from horse riding, and you know that horse riders use spurs to edge their horses on. And he says, here I am. It's like a double image here. He says, I'm like the horse, right? And I have spurs that prick the sides of my intent. In other words, that push me forward, that make me go forward. And I have no spur other than, nothing that pushes me other than, and he knows it is vaulting ambition. Vaulting means excessive ambition, but also you think of the horse rider vaulting himself onto the saddle, but in this case, he knows that his ambition is so big that he will be like this rider, and he will be excessively ambitious, and he knows he's not going to end orderly and dig in a dignified way into the saddle, but he's going to fall down on the other side. He knows it is going to cause his downfall, right? And yet he does it. He fully understands that his vaulting ambition at the expense of others cannot be achieved without courting evil. You see, without going the evil way. And then he's done. The undeserved and selfish desire for status, rank, or power is a dangerous impulse. He knows it. It's going to make him fall on the other side. And in the long run, it's going to end in disgrace and in failure, which it does. So here, just to look at this image again, instead of landing on the top, in the saddle, or the hero, of course, in a position of power, excessive ambition makes the rider go too far and fall into disgrace and humiliation. Important quote to remember. We want to have a bit of a look into the weird sisters and how they fit into evil and the choice of evil. Firstly, as I've just explained to you, Macbeth's murderous ambition is not injected to him by the witches. They didn't grab him and inject him with ambition. He had the ambition himself. It's part of his nature, and there's nothing wrong with it, right? because he should have incorporated, it's part of his being and it's natural, it's orderly, but it should have been incorporated into the harmony of serving the will of God, right? But the evil promptings are actually made real on stage by the witches that physically appear. And it is the role of the witches as the powers of evil, they are the powers of evil, to put ideas into Macbeth's head, where, of course, he should use his reason. They're blurring it, right? Which pander to his weakness and contradict his humaneness and his respect for human value. Think of the promises that they make. This murder is implied, right? It contradicts his humaneness. And once these are admitted, in other words, if these ideas are admitted into your head, inhumane or beastly nature, which disrupts harmony and peace, takes over. So, in other words, then you go onto the side of vice, and your nature becomes beastly, not natural, unnaturally ambitious. It becomes a beastly kind of ambition. Remember Macbeth saying, then I'm a man no more. If I do more, I'm not a man anymore. So natural feelings, peaceful rest, and peace of mind are therefore replaced in Macbeth by callous thoughts. He's pretty callous when he hears the news of his wife's death. Nightmares that he gets. He sees the image of Duncan in his dreams and in his nightmares. And of course, hallucinations. He has many, many hallucinations. So the natural order of things gets disrupted, and because he's gone into the side of vice. So evil is connected to the unnatural. And if you look at the witches, they are symbolical throughout the play of unnatural ugliness. They are described to us, and they are really ugly. They have choppy fingers, they have skinny lips, and they have beards. And they are women. So, which in itself is a contradiction in nature. It's not natural for a woman to have a beard. And they are described as so withered and so wild in their attire, says Macbeth, that look not like the inhabitants of the earth. They are not earthly beings. Remember, we're talking about the order on earth. They are sort of out of the natural order. They are not part. And they are sinister disturbances of natural order. And their chants around the fire in later scenes increase our impression of their unnaturalness and their evilness. Now, Lady Macbeth, at her most ruthless, resembles the witches by embracing the unnatural and evil determination to act in conflict with her womanhood. Think of the witches having beards and so on. She wants to act in conflict to her womanhood and in conflict with nature. She says many things that contradicts her feminine nature, and of course what is orderly and right in terms of the natural order of things. In Act 1, Scene 4, she exclaims to the sightless substances that wait on nature's mischief. That's when she invokes the powers of evil. She says, "Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here." Can you see the unnatural? "Unsex me here, and fold me from the crown to the toe, topful of the direst cruelty. Make thick my blood, that no compunctious visitings of nature," right, "will shake my fell purpose." In other words, everything that's natural and what should be part of my feminine nature will not be there, so I will just be evil. So she calls upon these evil spirits to sort of almost invade her soul and invade her reasoning and her thinking. And you can see this is a conscious choice also of evil here. And later, Lady Macbeth resolutely sets her mind against thinking of the murder. The murder is committed, and you know what her role was in that. And then she says, "Oh, but we mustn't think about it." So, in other words, it's easy for us, and we're going to look at Lady Macbeth at a later stage as well. She says these deeds must not be thought after these ways, so it will make us mad. So, what is she saying? She's saying that if we can just take it out of our reason, we're just going to ignore the fact that we are endowed with reason. We're not going to think about it, because if we do, it's going to make us mad. But the thing is, it's making her mad anyway, because it's there, and you cannot negate that. You cannot undo. She herself says what's done is done and cannot be undone. So this attempt of hers to not even think about what they did in itself represents to run counter to the course of nature, because we are made this way. If we commit something terrible, or whatever we do, we will have memories of it. It'll be in here. We can't just take it out of our memory. It's impossible. So it's against the course of nature. And it is not a matter of, for great surprise, that she fails, of course. And then she starts sleepwalking, and eventually she commits suicide. So her subsequent sleepwalking and her madness, her walking with a candle all the time, and symbolize a disturbance, a breaking down of nature, and a total blurring of her reason. She's not sane anymore. And a suicide, of course, is a final violent truncation of the life force. Remember, we said that Macbeth also became lifeless. Life was meaningless, and there was a lifelessness about him when he received the news of the death of his wife. So, evil, therefore, is largely symbolized by the three weird sisters in the play. Their function is, what do? They feed Macbeth's ambition, and they make it excessive. It's actually Macbeth himself that feeds his own ambition, but they are symbolic of the forces of evil. And ambition has always been one of the conditioning elements of Macbeth's life, but the predictions of the three sisters, the weird sisters, turn his thoughts along the way of evil superstition. So you see how he then starts embracing superstition, which once again is not the truth, is a blurred concept of blurred thinking. When the sisters then, of course, disappear, having set the ball rolling, what we see here is that Lady Macbeth takes over their role and then further incite the murder. So, choosing the unnatural, Macbeth chooses the unnatural. The supernatural sisters' evil equivocations, in other words, their half-truths and their blurred truths that they give to Macbeth, it clouds Macbeth's natural reason, right? These equivocations cloud his reason, and he accepts, instead of reason, he accepts the opposite, the vice, thinking in an illogical way. In other words, believing superstition. It's illogical to feed his ambition. When the title of the Thane of Cawdor is conferred upon him, the horrid image of murder makes him physically feel the unnatural stirrings of evil. That's once again, it's a quote from the play, where It says, he says, these supernatural solicitings cannot be good, cannot be bad. If it's good, why did it give me earnest of success? And if it's good, why does it unfix my hair and makes my seated heart knock at my ribs? In other words, even his body is acting in a strange, unnatural way. It's the evil stirrings when he first sees the image, the thought of killing for his own purpose. And that happens when he receives the news of the title of the Thane of Corda. And then we are asking ourselves, does he know what he's doing? Is the choice that he makes for evil? He feels it in his body that this is not right. And apart from that, even Banquo that walks with him, Banquo uses his reason. He says, no, Macbeth, change. Don't go there. He says, to win us, he talks about the sisters, the witches, to win us to our harm, the instruments of darkness, the sisters, tell us truths, and then we believe them, right? And they win us with honest trifles, little things that anyone could have guessed. And they say this to us, and then, it happens, and we believe it, right? But only to pull us to the other side, to the evil side, to betray us in the deepest consequence and really cause our destruction. They will betray you in the deepest consequence as opposed to the honest trifles that they give you. So I think it is fair to say that Macbeth willingly chooses the unnatural, chooses evil, while he knows pretty well that it's going to cause his downfall.